Greetings. How you doing?
Greetings and salutations, sir.
Yeah,
Good
it's
to,
good. Yeah, good to be here, man.
great to be here as well. Great to be here with you. And just thanks for joining us today. Thanks for
Yeah,
joining.
man. Yeah. It's a privilege, man. I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. And I'm pronouncing it correctly. Is it Professor Spira?
Yeah. Yep. Spira. Yeah.
Spira. Spira. Now, that sounds like it has meaning.
Yeah. So when you read the Mucusless Diet Healing System by Professor Arnold Ehret, which is what I do and promote and teach about, Ehret pointed out that the Latin root spira or spiro, but spira means breath. So Spira, so I took inspiration from that in terms of Professor Spira, but that's you see that root all over the place in words like inspiration, spirit, Spira, spirit, the concept of spirit. The basis of that is breath,
Beautiful.
and so yeah, that's where that's coming from.
Okay. So a professor of the breath, a professor of the spirit, a professor just of the essence, the breath of life.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing when people talk about, or you see in different ancient texts, they'll say something about impure spirits. So, or they had an impure spirit.
Mhm.
I read that to mean they had bad breath, meaning they physiologically were constipated. They were not following nature's laws in terms of what they're supposed to be eating. Therefore, that makes them have impure spirits. But a lot of people don't make that physiological connection.
Right, right. And for people who don't really know your story or haven't really stumbled upon your journey and don't really realize your learning, on your journey, where did it begin? Where did you begin to come into this knowledge, to come into this knowing, and to really get the energy flowing within you?
So when I got started growing up, I was overweight. I was sick all the time. I had monthly ear infections, blowing my nose constantly all day, every day. I would get fevers at least once a month. I was just constantly sick. And my family members were also often sick, where my mother went in and out of the hospital over 200 times in 1 year. She was just constant, like a couple times a week, go to the emergency room, get admitted for a day, come back. And that, as a young person, that's how I lived. It was just that kind of reality. It was a reality to have a bathroom that has just a menagerie of different drugs and pharmaceutical medicines and bottles. And so I equated that to being an adult, like adulthood. That's what I saw adults doing, was taking medication. So I thought, well, that's what, if I want to grow up, I want to be like an adult, and that's what I should be probably doing. So when I was 7 years old and they gave me a permanent prescription for allergies, saying, oh, well, you're probably going to have this for the rest of your life. For a moment, I thought kind of like I'm grown up now. I'm taking medication. But a few years after I started doing that, my grandma, who had I really had the mother son bond with my grandma, and she passed away because my grandma and my aunt would take care of me a lot of the time because my mom was just too sick, just in and out the hospital, just really not in a condition to be able to raise me. So so I really had this connection with my grandma, but she passed away unexpectedly because I didn't know she was sick. Nobody told me. So that really devastated me. And then a week after she passed away, my mom had a massive heart attack, ended up getting a triple bypass surgery. Then 6 months later, she had both of her legs amputated from the knee down because her feet were turning black and gangrenous. And that's imprinted in my mind. Like I can, to this day, I can see just her feet had turned totally black and they were all plump. And so they cut off her legs. About a year after that, she passed away at the age of 47. And I literally had doctors tell me that that is probably going to happen to me, that this is genetic, that I'm probably going to be sick. I'm probably going to have diabetes. I'm probably going to just get worse and worse. So that false belief was something that, oh, it's an authority figure. It's somebody with a white doctor's outfit. So they must be true. I guess I should listen to them. And so as I continued forth, by about the time my high school year, I started thinking there's got to be something better than this. There's got to be a way to heal yourself, or some kind of way to overcome not only just human illness but suffering in general. So I kind of had this double life where I went to school and I was a football player and musician and popular and that kind of stuff, but privately I was starting to study a lot of books. I was reading all kinds of different spiritual texts and doing different kinds of meditation practices and kind of getting into my studies with the goal of finding the foundation of human illness and the foundation and cure for human suffering. And so, but when I went to college, I ended up gaining about like almost 100 pounds or 60 something pounds. Just, you go to college and start just stuffing yourself. So I got up to 300 pounds, over 300 pounds at the most. And I was so sick. This bronchitis all the time. Put me on a CPAP unit. They had diagnosed me with sleep apnea. I was on a CPAP unit at the age of 19. And so it was a mess. And lucky for me, so I went to College Conservatory of Music as a musician, or pursuing to become a jazz musician. And that's when I met my good friend and mentor, Brother Air, aka Willie Smart, who introduced me to the Mucusless Diet healing system. And so, the way I was actually eating a big plate of food at a jam session when he was telling me about it. I had this plate with all these chicken wings and I'm just like going at it. And he just had this look on his face like he couldn't hold it in anymore. He was going to have to like let me know some truths. Mm-hmm. So we started talking. We ended up talking like 6 hours that night, just after the jam session. And I then went and picked up a copy of the Mucusless Diet. 6 months after reading that book, I'd lost 100 pounds, overcame the illnesses that I had. I got off the pharmaceutical medications. I got got off the CPAP unit, all of that stuff, just total transformation. And I wish I don't got my before and after picture, but if anybody looks that up, it's a pretty stark difference in total transformation where people didn't recognize me. I had transformed so much. And so the deeper I got into this, I was like, wait a minute. Yeah, this helped me, but can this help other people? Is this actually the so-called cure for human illness? Did we figure it out? It's right at the beginning of the Mucusless Diet book. Arnold Ehret says, all disease, every disease, no matter what name it is known by medical science, is constipation, a clogging up of the entire pipe system of the human body. He's not just talking about bowel constipation. He's talking about cellular constipation from head to toe, because we've been eating foods that are totally unnatural for humans. And right there, that was the aha moment. I'm just reading through this book. I'm like, wait a minute. No wonder we suffer so much. No wonder all these new illnesses and new ailments. It's not genetics. It's not about germs. It's not about, some kind, whatever fear-mongering concept they want to do. It's not about calories. It's about elimination and the removal of uneliminated, unnecessary waste, and then being vigilant to not continually put unnecessary, slimy, obstructive waste into the body. And so that was the realization. I was like, okay, we got something that we can work with here.
Oh man, beautiful. What a transformation. Like, what a revelation, what a revelation to really feel the vibration of new information, and just to come into that realization, like that I don't have to remain the same. Like, I can change and rearrange, and I can reclaim this body, and retrain this body, and feel even more, and just, oh my goodness. First of all, congratulations, just on the work that you've done for yourself. Congratulations. I mean, getting yourself off of so many things, like you know, even myself, I feel very resonant with you, feel very reminiscent as you were speaking, you know, getting myself off of medications, and then, you know, having those tribulations of the CPAP machine and having them, you know, I was very congested as well, very constipated as well. They told me same thing, sleep apnea, you know, and
Mm-hmm.
then they said I had a deviated nasal septum. They did surgery on that, corrected that. Nothing was correcting the problem because I kept putting it in my body,
Right.
you know? It was what I was feeding my body, and just constantly eating, you know, constantly needing and always depleting. So this is incredible. And first, and also, Professor Spira, what was your immersion, like the emotional turmoil? I can only imagine. You know, my mother is a doctor. She's an OBGYN. She's a gynecologist. And her being a doctor, you know, she always used to side with the doctors whenever it came to diagnoses on
Mm.
me. And whatever the doctor said, she was like, okay, we'll go with it. You know, if the psychiatrist said you need this, then she said, okay, we'll go with it. But I've also later on in life, I've been, you know, I've had to take, you know, even family members, my parents, my loved ones, to the hospital for none else than constipation, you know? And she's, you know, she's in the medical field. So there's a lot of
Yeah.
things people in the medical field don't realize when it comes to diet, nutrition, and all this. But what were your emotions seeing what happened to your mother? Like seeing what happened to her, like seeing the gradual decline and the gradual, and then eventually having her go the way she did. Like what was it, if you can recall, that you felt?
I mean, that's really at the to this day is a big part of why I do what I do, because I know that with this information, if I can help just one person avoid going through that, one person avoid losing a loved one prematurely, or themselves leaving the planet prematurely.
Right.
Uh, I actually wrote, you know what? I'm a I'm gonna read you a
Okay.
poem. So this is my book, Spirit Speaks.
Yeah.
So this so I have this is a very this is a unique a unique book. People say this isn't a diet book. This is a lifestyle book.
Mm.
But let me see if I can find.
Go ahead. Take your time.
All right. So this is one last time.
Okay.
So I looked down at her. Two amputated legs. Light green mucus oozes through the thick metal stitches curved into her swollen flesh. An elderly man in the TV room slobbers on himself. The smell from a bedpan. My mother laying there with her white moon face. Scrapes and scars from countless shots and IVs, uneaten jello on a table beside her, the everyday sound of the heart monitor. Beep, beep. In the hall, a fat orderly pushes Rosie to bingo, her arms twitching uncontrollably. My mother, 43 years old. Armed with my Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle backpack, I look into her paper white face. With my finger, I open her eyelid to reveal a watery white ball. I tell my aunt that she is not in there.
Mm. Jeez. Yeah, that really captures the picture.
Yeah, yep.
And geez, that's way too young, you know, way too young. And just when you're, especially in that moment, you know, like with the words that you just painted a picture and illustrated that just now, like you opened her eyes, you told your aunt she's not there anymore, she's gone, she's somewhere else. You know, where do you feel like she was in that moment that you said she's not there?
Where I just knew that her soul was no longer in her body, even though the body she was still breathing, or they had, you know, the heart is still pumping, but her soul at that moment, because this happened, and I'd actually forgotten about it. So that's the thing where I had I'd forgotten about it. And this was years ago after I had a conversation with my aunt. She reminded me about that. And then that's when I wrote this poem. And because, yeah, a lot when we talk about the emotion, I had to process a lot of those emotions later in life when I learned about different kinds of emotional release techniques and meditation techniques and self-hypnosis, something I practiced, something called the Sedona method for many years. But at that time, what I did was I became, they say that when young people lose a loved one, oftentimes they fit into one of two categories. They either become so-called bad kids and just get, just have a bad attitude or go be troublemakers, or they become overachievers. So what I did is I went on that route where I became this overachiever. So I really just suppressed, and I really didn't, when my mom died, I really didn't even let myself go through any emotions. I literally, like a Navy SEAL or something, I kind of compartmentalized those emotions, and I focused 100% on achieving things, like whatever I could achieve. So I became an Eagle Scout at the age of 15. I was the first black senior patrol leader in my scout. I was one of the top trombonists in the state in high school, and went on tours. Went on a tour of Europe as in a band of all the best musicians. I was trying to get straight A's and perfect attendance, and so all that kind of stuff. And I basically focused on all those things. Because nobody taught me how to deal with emotions or anything. Like I said, I had to learn that myself later. And so that was something that years later, actually years into my practice of the Mucusless Diet, when I went through, sometimes we have to go through eliminations or little healing crises and things to, I would say, pay reparations for physiological karma. But there was one of those times when I actually was able to feel these uneliminated emotions, the traumas and the grieving that I had never actually did when I was young. All of that started coming to the surface. And at that time I was fasting. I was doing a lot of fasting. I was doing a lot of stuff. And so I was, for hours, I was doing emotional releasing techniques and self-hypnosis things and all this stuff that I've learned. And,
Oh man. So,
you
so
know,
much work. You've done so much work. So just all of just the countless methods and modalities that you've done to change your mentality and reshape the reality that you were living at that time. And, it's so interesting because from what I've spoken to different people about and I've seen, and in myself as well, I've seen that a lot of great change, the most profound changes, usually don't occur until there's either great inspiration or desperation.
mm,
Somebody has to either be desperate or they have to be inspired. So for you, when you saw your mother, in that shape, and then when she passed away, you still went on to, you still went on to develop or continue certain habits that you said it was after that you got to 300 pounds, right? It was after that?
yeah, it was, I mean, it was quite a bit after that, because
Quite a
in
bit.
high school, yeah, I got up to about 240, 250,
Okay.
but I was I was a varsity football player. So I was
Right.
like one of the biggest guys on the line. I played offensive
Right.
guard and tackle. And so I was working out a lot. I was eating really bad, but once, as they say, sometimes with the freshman 15 and stuff, which is more nowadays, it's like the freshman 20. But when you go to college, when I went to college, I was no longer an athlete. So I was no longer working out like I was, and going to a conservatory of music. I was working 20 hours a day just to keep up. Back then it was a very rigorous program. I've heard it's not as much anymore. I don't know, but I was, just to keep up. They have something, I think, with the College Conservatory of Music. Almost 40 or 50% of the people that start don't even make it to year number 2.
Hmm.
I mean, it's a really hardcore program. So I was working round the clock just to keep up. And So I was just eating horrible because I wasn't working out, wasn't thinking about my health at all, really. And so it was really just mostly it was either practicing, studying, or going to class. And so I blew up
Yeah.
and it got up to where it was just getting out of hand at that point. Where I was like, damn, looking. I mean, I almost went that whole year not even looking in the mirror. I didn't even want to look in the mirror and see because it was just getting worse and worse and worse. And so at that time, I was under the illusion of, as some artists get into, or people, if you're really pursuing an art form, where you immerse yourself 100% into that art form, and which means you're not even taking care of your health, or you're not worrying about all kinds of stuff. And I was into that until Brother Air got me hip, saying that if you aspire to be a great musician, your instrument is not the physical instrument that you play, that your actual instrument is your body. And that's when I was like, oh snap. Because you could develop all these skills, but if you end up being too sick to function, or you die prematurely, what was all that work for?
Right.
You didn't do anything.
Exactly.
And so that was a huge realization at that point. But yeah, I went about a year, that whole freshman year, before learning about the Mucusless Diet. Then once I did, it was just like total night and day.
Night and day transformation. So shout out to Brother Air, for making you aware. Like, shout out to Brother Air for bringing in self-care. Shout out to Brother Air. It's interesting because, and much respect to you, Professor Spira, for being a trombonist. I was on baritone myself and percussion. I was in and out on percussion and baritone when I was in my middle school band and in different bands. But
Yeah.
my goodness, just to have that understanding and to then be demanding a change for yourself. When you're looking in the mirror, can you talk about the guilt and the shame? Because there's guilt, there's shame, and there's blame, different cycles and patterns that we can get into when we don't even want to see our reflection and we don't want to acknowledge or make that connection. So when you were not looking in the mirror, you said there were times where you were avoiding the mirror because you didn't want to look at yourself as you continued expanding. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so it was when I that whole first year of college, I knew that I was losing control of physiologically, this is my health, and I had tried different different ways to lose weight in high school, and diet pills and all, just but none of that stuff, obviously, we know now worked. And so I just literally got into this thing where I thought that by not focusing at all on my appearance, that I was in some way becoming a better artist. So I was immersed 100% into my art and my pursuit of the art, so I would let everything else go. So I'm not even going to. It's kind of like the concept when people say that that some of these people that wear the same thing every day, where they don't even have to put any energy into that. I was kind of doing that. I was using that as an excuse to just not even look in the mirror, because I just didn't. My face was just getting plumper and bigger, and I just didn't even want to look at myself. I actually found, so in it, I don't know how you can see this. This is black and white. This out the book, yeah. Wow. So this is the before and after. So this is. There's very few pictures of me, actually 300. I'm probably more like 250 here, 250, 260. So add another, 40, 50 pounds to that guy, and that's at my heaviest.
Wow.
But yeah,
totally
these were
unrecognizable, just night and day difference, like you said, just total transformation. And when somebody is in a negative vibration, like in a lower vibration, and they're in that state where they don't want to look at themselves, they don't want to see themselves, do you feel like it keeps us in a downward spiral? Does it keep us going down when we don't want to look, when we don't want to see, when we try to like evade, does it keep us going?
It can, because so by doing that, I just almost like the way that I compartmentalized the emotions when my mom passed, I would never let myself get anywhere close to what people might describe as like a
Right.
depression or anything. So it's like I had ways to maintain a certain level of vibe where I could maintain my inspiration and sort of ignore other things that I really needed to worry about. The one saving grace though with me is being open minded, and I never and I was on the search.
Hmm.
And so just because I wasn't looking, but that's when I was still kind of looking around and using music, consciously using music and the arts as a means to find truth.
Yes.
And that's what happened. And so being, because if I was an open minded person and I wasn't consciously searching, thinking that there was a way
Right.
to find, like I didn't know what it was going to be, but I did. I was really inspired by some of the musicians, people like John
Hmm.
Coltrane, where he had made this spiritual transformation in the course of his life. Where by the time in the latter part of his life, the music he's playing, a lot of people don't understand it if you listen to the stuff that he's playing at the end of his life. But he had really had this spiritual awakening, and he just didn't have the diet part. He didn't have the information that we have, so he died very young, younger than he otherwise I think would have. And interestingly enough, I years ago I met a Curtis Fuller, who's a famous historical jazz trombone legend, and he said that he had actually gave a copy, or I don't know if he gave it. Somebody gave. He knew that somebody gave John Coltrane a copy of the Mucusless Diet healing system when he was on his deathbed. So it was like
Oh.
literally too late. But the only reason that I even heard that story was because I gave, as I used to give everybody I came across at that time. I was around a lot of great jazz
Hmm.
musicians, and I gave everybody a copy of the Mucusless Diet. And interestingly, there was several that knew about it that are even they might not have did anything with the information, but they knew about it, and so that was really interesting to me. But yeah, that John Coltrane and others, other musicians, but just that pursuit of wanting to master. It's a kind of mastery. That's one thing that I see today, or one commentary that I have that I think could be improved. That's being lost is people mastering something,
Hmm.
because with this online world and the new internet age, there's a lot of people that kind of know a little bit about a lot of stuff,
Hmm.
but I see less of people dedicating all of their energy into the mastery of one thing,
Hmm.
and then learning about everything from that viewpoint
Right.
from after having mastered something. So from the musical standpoint, I immersed everything into the mastery,
Hmm.
trying to attain mastery in a musical art form. So when the Mucusless Diet came along, I applied that same kind of focus and energy into the Mucusless Diet
Yes.
to actually to really develop a certain level of understanding and mastery of that one system. So then when I evaluate other dietary concepts and theories and things, I'm not like taking a little bit of the Mucusless Diet, taking a little bit of that stuff. It's like, no, I'm grounded in the Mucusless Diet,
Hmm.
and I can evaluate, just as Arnold Ehret actually does in the Mucusless Diet book, I can evaluate these other modalities and explain it through the filter of the Mucusless Diet, which is a helpful thing to be able to do.
Yes.
But
Beautiful.
but yeah,
Beautiful.
mastery. I'm an advocate for whatever it is that you're working on. Like
Master
master,
it. Yeah.
go strive for that mastery.
Beautiful. I agree. I agree. Just becoming a specialist, really specializing in that area instead of generalizing, instead of being the jack of all trades, be the master of one, and then you're transmuting that energy, you're translating that energy to everything else, from one thing you can know 10,000 things from one thing.
Yep.
And I mean, it's, Bruce Lee said it. He was like, You know, the guy who knows 10,000 kicks, you know, that has practiced 10,000 kicks one time, I'm not afraid of that guy, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But the guy who's practiced one kick
10,000
10,000
times.
times,
Yeah, yeah,
get out of here,
yep,
right? Like you better run, you
yeah,
know.
exactly, exactly. Yep.
Yeah. So it makes a whole lot of sense the way that you drilled deeply into one area until you struck water instead of digging a million holes and never finding the water, you know, just going deep in one area and then just translating what you learned onto the next thing and onto the next thing. It's very logical, it makes sense. And shout out to John Coltrane, you know, I love Supreme. Love
Yeah.
Supreme, you know.
Yes.
Shout out to I didn't even know that story about, you know, him just, you know, with him passing early and then somebody even passing along the mucusless, like Professor Arnold Ehret, like to him before he passed on. And I love that you give this to everyone. You're just giving to everyone, Professor. Like whenever you come in contact with somebody here, it's like it's more than just evangelizing, you
Mm.
know. It's like you're lifting people up, you're gifting people, shifting people, and lifting people with this knowledge that, you know, a lot of us did not learn in college. You know, we did not learn this knowledge in college. So it even strikes with Professor Hilton Hotima, you know, with, you know, Man's Higher Consciousness. When I was reading that book, same thing. Professor Hilton Hotima was talking about elimination being way more important than feeding, like
Right.
way more important than what we're putting in is what we need to be getting out, you
Yeah.
know, like
Yeah.
it's like a lot of us we're concerned with renewing our vows. We should be renewing our bowels, you know, like we
Yeah.
need
There it is. Yeah. Amen. Right. There it is. And
yeah,
I really like Hotima's the law of vital adjustment concept because you hear me talk often about transition methodology and diet, and some people ask like, well, what do you use the word transition all the time? What are you talking about? And it's like, okay, in the Mucusless Diet book, there's transition diet, but you have to go a little deeper and really analyze to understand the power of what he's talking about, the power of using incremental change to create permanent change. And that, yeah, that law of vital adjustment was just another way of it kind of explaining that principle where, because you can use the principle of slow, gradual, permanent change to either to get well, to get healthier, but you could also use that principle to go in the other direction. It's just a tool. It's just a principle. But that's a thing that for what I kind of haven't understood why the transition and transition diet has been such a hard thing for some people to kind of grasp and sometimes a little controversial concept, but that because of that, I've sort of made it a big focus to encourage people to look into that, to really to give yourself to the transition because you can go as fast or as slow as you need to in turn based on your physiology. Everybody's body is different, so some people can go a lot quicker into the direction of just a healthier, the higher levels of diet, and it can always go higher and higher. That's the other thing. Sometimes people are like, well, what's the goal? What are you trying to do? It's like, well, my goal doesn't have to be your goal because the Mucusless Diet healing system is a tool. This methodology is a tool. So there's people that are practicing Mucusless Diet that they just wanted to lose a little bit of weight or overcome some ailments, get off of some medications. Then we have other people like Brother Air that wants to pursue what Hotima was talking about and get into the going very long periods of time without ingesting anything other than air. And so, and then everything in between. I'm very interested in cleaning myself up and building an environment to where I can have and raise
right.
children and to perpetuate the bloodline. It's like first you got to clean up the blood, then let's work on the generational physiological liberation. And so that's like where my head is at. But that's what I'm saying. Everybody be a little different.
Yes, the bloodline, the bloodline. You know, I just had a picture. You gave me a picture, brother, of like Game of Thrones, you know? You know, you're sitting on the throne of your bloodline, like you're in charge. Where is the
Mm,
next generation gonna come and just the lineage,
yeah,
you know, the lineage.
yeah,
you know, not just the ancestors from before, but, you know, even more like going beyond what's going to happen to the lineage, the bloodline, and how do we change this, you know? So it's awesome because when you're talking about these things and you know you're going down these pathways of okay, the mucusless diet, and if somebody was in your situation and they were, you know, if you see somebody they're, you know, 300 pounds or even excess like over that, and so I mean there's people that, I mean, the body is amazing. I'm just thinking about the body's
Mm,
capacity just to keep us in balance, to keep us
yeah.
alive and in homeostasis against all odds, even bedridden, you know, with somebody who's, you know, got a body mass index of over 60, and
Mm,
they categorize them as super morbidly obese, you know, that they have to be rolled over and somebody has to wash them on this side, and they have to be rolled over and somebody has to wash them on this side, and they can't function on their own, but their body is still alive, you know?
yeah. Yeah.
So just to, for somebody like that, because you have a reel and it's amazing. I love the way you use music and I love the way you use humor on your reels.
Mm,
You capture all of the feels on your reels. First, your use of music is genius.
mm.
The way you use
Oh,
your
thank
music,
you.
is everything is intentional. There's nothing without intention. Like
Right.
all the
Yeah.
music is very intentional. And then one of the reels had a little baby, and there was a cat that had a napkin. This kid had a napkin, and she's like petting the face of the, you know, wiping the
Yeah.
tears of the baby, and the
Yeah.
baby's surrounded by a field of corn, and it's like when you find out corn is mucus forming, and you're like, it's okay, you can transition, you can use it to transition, it's okay, you know.
Yeah.
So what would you suggest to people who are in dire straits and they want to transition, but they feel like if they jump straight off the cliff and they go too fast, they'll go too far?
Mhm.
What advice do you have for people?
So that's why it's so important to first and foremost read the Mucusless Diet Healing System. Whether you read my version or a different version, that's my annotated version, where it's the original content, but as an editor, we come in and I clarify things in the margins and define terms and that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
But in those kind of cases, there's once you understand the mechanics and the principles of the transition better, and you see the playing field, once you know what you're able to use, because in those kind of cases, we're gonna well, definitely some type of colon irrigation. That's controversial sometimes, but we want to clean out the colon, and so they might not be capable of doing an enema. We've had some folks like that in the community where they were started off too heavy, so they wouldn't be able to lay down on the ground and stand up to do an enema. So
Right.
there's the options are to get a Kalima board, which is like a home colonic system. So that's popular with some people in our community.
Mm.
Just go to a colonic place if you need to, and do a series of colonics, like whatever it is to get it going, because you gotta start clearing out that colon. As somebody that obese, there's gonna be, I mean, Ehret talked about a case where he got 60 pounds worth of uneliminated fecal matter out of somebody's gut. And so, because the standard is like 15, 20 pounds of,
Right.
just the average person walking around has 20 pounds of uneliminated fecal matter up in them. But when you start talking about the morbidly obese, it's like, nah, you need to get them on a real good colonic regimen. Then you're going to be giving them stuff like, one of the things that I'll bring up as an example that's different, that people don't, unless you really study the mucusless diet, you don't understand, because there's a lot of folks that are real staunch, hardcore raw foodists that are in our midst in the community, and that's cool.
Mhm.
But when you're talking about transitioning somebody that's in that condition, then things like the cooked fruit, we got baked banana surprise. I've helped a number of people who had lost the ability to digest food and have natural bowel movements within 2 days, reverse that, just eating baked banana surprise for like 2 days. That's a recipe. That's actually a free recipe download if somebody wants to find it.
You said
But
they lost the ability?
yeah, because I've worked with a number of people that had been raw foodists. So something that I'll do, because I love raw foodists and we're in that space, but our opinions differ sometimes in terms of the how we think about the role of cooked food. It can be quite different. And I've had a number of people who had been raw foodists for a number of years, but there's there's a lot of things that you just shouldn't eat raw. You should either not eat it at all, or it needs to be cooked if you're going to eat it. So they're eating these things, and they're some different. Just a lot of things that folks were doing where they was consuming a lot of mucus forming foods, even though they might be raw. And so a number of those people had lost the ability to have natural bowel movements. Now, some people in the raw foods community would tell them, well, they need to just go get on enzymes. And I'm like, that's not my approach. That's not my recommendation. What I'm saying is you want to eat foods that are going to be naturally help cause good eliminations and just good bowel movements, regardless, like kind of by any means necessary, regardless if it's cooked or not. So the combination of, and baked banana surprised is it's like baked bananas, and I got a whole kind of recipe how you do it. But the baked bananas, you put some chopped dates in there, or you can put some chopped prunes or something like that, and some applesauce. And you put that combination together and you eat it. If you're a very constipated person, or if you're the type of person that just you really have trouble having natural bowel movements, within a couple of days, provided that you eat your other meals are good, that's going to turn you around immediately, like really pretty quick.
Right.
And so that's the thing. It's where when I look at, and this is just right out of the Mucusless Diet book, where Ehret says it's not, cooked food is not inherently evil. Not all cooked food is created equally. It's having a cooked slab of meat is quite different from having some baked zucchini. The question is how much slime is produced. And so where I get controversial with some folks in the raw food space is I would rather somebody eat a big raw combination salad with some baked zucchini or some baked acorn squash than to have a bunch of avocados, like a 100% raw salad with a whole bunch of avocados. Now they hate me for that, and I get it. It's fine. You can hate me if you want. But what happens is and I'm not telling people not to eat avocados. Again, a transitional item, but understand that slimy nature of that thing. I mean, if you ever let an avocado just sit there and it starts turning brown and slimy and gray, it turns gray and slimy, then you're just like, okay, if you sit a piece of baked zucchini and you let that sit, it can sit all night. It's not going to get smelly and nasty and slimy. It's not. And so those are the kind of mechanics of where we bring a system. That's why it's called the healing system, where you're understanding, you learn how to combine in a systematic fashion transitional dietary methodology, short-term fasting methods, the colon irrigation methods, the sunbathing and the exercise. Like, it's all part of the system.
Right.
And the mastery and learning how to master the art of the system is being able to bring all these pieces together in an ordered, effective fashion.
Beautiful, beautiful. Simply put, I love just the breakdown and the explanation that you give, like step by step, on these things that, so many people have so many ideas and ideologies and philosophies and just opinions on. I love how you just bring it all back down to earth, and just come people just to relate people on that level, because I have so many questions. Professor Spira, I have so many questions. First of all, when it comes to what people don't realize about the fecal matter, or just the matter that hasn't been released, like you said, Brother Air, getting somebody, you know, to release like 60 pounds of waste that had just been sitting there. When people hear about things like mucoid plaque and they don't understand like what is mucoid plaque and like what is that and why does it take so long to release and why does it cling on to the lines of the colon and then it comes out in the shape of your colon and then
Right.
it smells like death and you squeeze it as rubbery and it's like this is not regular, you know, this is not regular, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So can you talk about these things?
Yeah. So, mucoid plaque, that's so we get so used to it. It's like we get desensitized to it because we just know what it is. So we get it out and be like, oh, okay, there's some more of this. We're cleaning ourselves out. But for people that don't know that all that stuff is in them, if they've
Right,
never really cleansed properly, then it's just surprising.
right,
And
right.
as we were saying, every disease, no matter what name it is known by medical science, is constipation.
Hmm.
And the seat of all constipation, the foundation of all constipation, is the colon.
Yeah.
So Ehret says, if anything is wrong with anybody, look first to the
Hmm.
colon. And so what happens is you take a baby.
Hmm.
If the baby has mother's breast milk and the mother is relatively clean, not a lot of slime is going to burn away clean. If they're raised with mucus-free fruits and vegetables, vegetable juices and purees and that kind of stuff, all of that stuff doesn't leave behind slime waste.
Hmm.
But somebody in a standard diet, I call it the standard anywhere diet, sad diet, all around the world, uh, somebody that has been dealing with that since childhood is starting to leave behind a layer of slime. How do you know if you have slime residue? Next time you have a bowel movement, see, do you have to wipe or not? If you have to wipe, that's just showing you what the slime is all about. Where
Hmm.
that, because when you start to eat cleaner and you get into the 100% mucus free realms, you'll start to notice like, man, I don't like, you can wipe, but then there's no residue there.
Hmm.
Yeah, eat an avocado, go to the bathroom, and I guarantee you're gonna be wiping. But there's that slimy residue is definitely gonna be there. But that was the whole point of Ehret's mucus-free foods paradigm, is you're eating things that burn away clean,
Hmm.
that don't leave behind the slimy residue. So if you can imagine from a baby, you take this baby that, yeah, they don't die right away, but they're over time, this slime is starting to build up, the uneliminated slime from unnatural food substances. So you're talking about age 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, all the way up until you get to 18, 19, 20, into the 20s, where they're just physiologically so constipated. The lymphatic system, that's why everything is so acidic, and the lymphatic system is starting to not filter anymore and not move. Everything is already starting to shut down and get coagulated and acidic and constipated. And that becomes this systemic Walking Dead. That's walking into that level of constipation, and so
Exactly.
that's what that's all about. So when you do an enema or you eat mucus free and you start seeing all of this slime come out, that's years worth of uneliminated food substance that the body, like you were talking about before, the brilliance of the body to be able to try and learn tolerance to
Hmm.
whatever you're doing to it. So that to try to tolerate and to continue to
Hmm.
live in hopes that you find the mucusless diet and wake up and learn what to do. That's just one of the ways that it tries to. It's like, okay, you're not giving me what I need to help get this waste out, so we'll just tuck it away here in the corners of the lining of the colon and intestines, and until you do the work to get it out of there, it stays there.
That's that's the question. So a big question that I have for you, like your theory on that, because I know, you know, with Professor Hilton Hotima was talking about, you know, the law of vital adjustment, as you talked about earlier, and how the body is adjusting and it's just, you know, conforming the shape to accommodate for our habits, you know, our habitual
Right,
rituals, right? It's
right.
okay, this is the regimen, this is the routine, this is the ritual, this is habitual. I'm going to conform, like, okay, let's wrap this, inflammation or encase this around this to protect us, or is trying to keep us safe. But, it seems to be that when someone has more heightened sensitivity, like when someone has gone through fasting, as you've done fasting, and different prolonged practices that are longer lasting, as such as fasting, you feel things quicker,
Yeah.
like
Oh
if
yeah.
there's disharmony, if there's discord, if there's something that you put in that is toxic, you feel it now,
Right.
you feel it
Yep.
very, very soon, versus somebody who I'm sure you've seen at the grocery store. I see it every day. And, they're in the electric cart and they're
Right.
having to push themselves around and they
Yeah.
can't
Yeah.
walk. And they're still like reaching on the shelf and putting things in the basket that are keeping them in the chair. They're grabbing things and putting it in, and everything that they're putting in is keeping them where they are.
Right.
But it's almost as though you almost wonder, like, are they experiencing symptoms the way I'm experiencing symptoms? Like, do they feel as So what is it a level of desensitization that they don't realize, like, there's a problem because there's no trigger to realize?
Yeah. Well, I mean, health. One way you can define health is by having the same diseases as everybody else around you. So in a lot of those cases, that condition has been normalized. Just the fact is, I don't remember people rolling around 20 years ago in those things, those carts,
No.
because it's different if you have somebody that's in a wheelchair,
Yeah.
paraplegic or
Yeah.
something. But this has become normalized because that level of obesity has become normalized with all of the ailments and the illnesses that come along with it. So when we start to see, colon cancer rates in young people are rising and all this kind of stuff, the average person, they look at that and like, oh, but it doesn't connect. They don't really think about it because they've been dumbed down
Mm.
by this food. Their light has been dimmed
Mm.
because of this, and so that's why sometimes we use the word zombie. It's sometimes it is like to it's like, with all due respect to everybody, it's like you're walking around, it's just zombies kind of in this zombie state because they just haven't woke up to this information. And so that's been my mission, is to at least expose them to it. I don't put no pressure on nobody. I can't force nobody to do nothing. It's just, I'm like, at least you've been exposed to this information, because if you've never been exposed to it, then there's no way for you to ever have known
Mm-hmm.
that what you were doing that you could do anything differently,
Yeah.
that you were breaking laws. It's like, if you break a law and you get arrested, just because you didn't know that you broke the law doesn't mean that you're not that you're that you're gonna get off.
Mm.
It's like, you still got to go pay reparations, and that's a lot of what has happened. Is with the way the society has been structured, is it sweetens people in their ignorance.
Mm.
They're where, because there's so much. I mean, look at you go to the store now, and it's like, what they have, the models. You never had that in the past, like the obese mannequins and this kind of thing. And it's just, instead of trying to create, just a lot of the value systems are very skewed.
Mm-hmm.
But all of that's the kind of stuff that starts to shift and change as people wake up and they start to change their physiology.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I'm an advocate for getting people to start with the diet first. If you can just start cleaning out your colon, it's going to force you to deal with your emotions down the road. It's going to force you to look at the world differently. And so that's why I try to do more warning people to get ready for the realizations and the way that the world is going to shift than anything else. It's like the actual nuts and bolts of doing the diet. Like, we can do that. Like, we got that. But the way you handle the social pressure, the way you handle the invitation to Thanksgiving dinner or the Christmas lunch or whatever, like that. That's going to be the defining moments for your practice.
Mm-hmm.
because that's when most people lose it, because that social pressure, that they get sucked back in. You know,
Mm-hmm.
they're bringing me back in. That you get sucked back
They pull me
in,
back.
and if you're not far enough along, you find a way. Again, you get swept up in the moment with the whole environment, and you find yourself eating some kind of turkey leg in front of you, and you've been, yeah. But then again, like you just said, the further along you're able to get, that's why I would say transition for permanent change. You get yourself to a place physiologically where it becomes impossible for you to go back to certain
Right.
foods. It becomes impossible to go back to that animal flesh, knowing that if you do eat that, it could be potentially fatal instantly, especially how far further you get.
Mm.
That could just be like, you could it's like turkey leg or cyanide. Like you could
I
do
felt it.
either one. It's both gonna kill you.
I felt it.
Uh,
I felt it. Yeah.
yeah. And so that becomes a lesson that's why it's important to connect with community,
Mm-hmm.
like-minded people, plug in, seek out mentors in the space, because it it's a lot easier than you think to lose focus and accountability
Mm.
on that aspect when it comes to the social. I've seen more people fail and fall off the wagon because of social challenges that they just didn't anticipate how challenging that part was going to be,
Right.
because they were focused on thinking that it was going to be hard. The diet was hard. And then they were like, oh, this is actually not that hard when you apply the principles and the methodologies that we talk about. It's not hard, but life can become harder around it, because now you're going diametrically opposed to the value system and the whole program of the pus and mucus based world. I
Mm.
mean, you're way on the other, just whole different kind of situation.
Right.
And until you start to experience that, it can be hard for you to really even realize that. You start going up the street and you're just seeing uh, the billboards and stuff, and advertisements just start to really get
Yeah.
ridiculous, because you're like, why am I looking at a pig selling me pork
Right.
products or some kind of,
Right.
like, what is that about? Why do they have a cow to sell you chicken?
Right.
And like, what's going on here? I mean, everything starts to really get bizarre, and that's why we say bizarro world. Once you wake up to this and you start to see what we're talking about, like, because I always say that, and I know not everybody understands what I mean when I say pus and mucus based society, pus and mucus based reality, is when you take pus and mucus out of the equation,
Mm-hmm.
then you're not going to have those billboards. You're not going to have all of the fast food restaurants all the way up and down the road.
Mm-hmm.
That goes away, and it's like you sober up, and all of a sudden you're like, oh wow, maybe we should get some fruit stands over here. Maybe we should start to grow our own food and have a community garden where everybody in the block can eat here. It's like it totally changes the whole
Yeah.
paradigm.
Yeah. What a novel idea, you know?
Right.
What a novel idea. Like maybe we should get more of this. Like maybe this isn't really working, you know? It's so I love the way that you speak about this, Professor, because what you're talking about is revolutionary and we see the change happening. You know, many people probably don't see it happening
Mm.
as quick as they think, but it's happening. And I mean, just this conversation is evidence to just how it's approaching. Like the future, people are waking up. You're part of the awakening. You're helping people come to their own realizations, like draw their own conclusions and be a healthy skeptic, you know, be a little skeptical,
Mm-hmm.
you know, have a little doubt, have a little, you know, have some questions, you know,
Mm-hmm. Right.
question the commercials, question, you know, the billboards, question the advertisements, question the marketing, like have some questions.
Right.
Because, you know, when we don't really have questions, you know, do we really see the progression? Do we really get the real lessons when we don't have the questions? It's like Cypher, you know, you've seen The Matrix. So, you know, Cypher in The Matrix had that scene where he said, ignorance is bliss. You
Yeah.
know, ignorance is bliss. As he's eating this thing, he says, I know that this is not,
I know this ain't
I
real.
know
Yeah.
it, you know, but doesn't matter. You know what? ignorance is bliss, right? He just takes it anyway.
Yeah.
So you're like Morpheus, Professor. You're like Morpheus with the red and the blue. You're like, hey, I can only show you the door.
Right. Yep.
You're the one that has to walk through it, right? I can't take this for you. You have to take it. You know, it's
Yeah.
up to you. I can't make the change for you. You have to make it. So it's awesome to see the work that you're doing with people on every level. And I also love the trigger words that you use to really get under people's skin to understand, like it gets its hooks in you, and it makes you also ponder things like, I've never heard anybody say Thankskilling. Thankskilling. You're the first person I've ever heard say Thankskilling. I've heard people, you know, called McDonald's. I've heard them say McDevils, right? I've heard people call Burger King Murder King.
Murder King.
I've heard people
Right.
call Taco Bell Taco Hell, right?
Right.
I've heard people call Chick-fil-A Sick-fil-A, right? But Thankskilling, Thankskilling, that's a big one. When you're coming up with these words, is it like with intention to, like, you know, really give that red pill to like wake people up out of their hypnosis?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of that it's intuitive. That stuff kind of comes to me, or I'll be talking with Brother Air, and we'll just so these things kind of emerge because you know, we have our own. It really is like a paradigm. You have a huge paradigm shift, and when you start to vibrate at this wavelength, or this frequency, then it opens up just a whole other kind of reality. So you're seeing things so differently. So that's why it can sometimes seem like it's like, oh wow, that's creative, or that's unique. It's like, no, but for us, that's how we feel. That's just everyday kind of reality.
Right. So it's just that feeling coming out. You're just like, this is what you're seeing. This is the lens. You're seeing from a different lens. You know, it's like some people, they have on the rose-colored glasses, and there's red flags everywhere. There's red flags, but since they're wearing the rose-colored glasses, they don't see them. But it's like you can actually see them. You see them clear as day. You're like, this is programming. This is programming. This is, you know, people don't realize this is a message, right?
Yeah, because and with the Thanksgiving, and that one was just a particular of all of the different holidays. that one was just really, for me, I have a problem with that one because it's based on genocide and in total just ignorance and false story. This whole, which I grew up with, they taught us that, oh, the Pilgrims and the Indians came together and they had a feast and everybody was happy. It's like, no, there was a genocide against the native peoples of North America, and you know, so you start studying Columbus and getting into all of that kind of stuff, and then so there's that backdrop. Then it becomes this excuse for people to shorten the length of their life by stuffing themselves, and it's viewed as being this oh well, it's just once a year, we're having fun, it's family, we're getting together. And the families coming together, as they say, disease doesn't run in families genetically. It's disease run in families because people eat together. They're eating the same stuff. And so for me, it's just this big celebration of ignorance. It's just at a super high level because, I mean, people literally eat until they're stuffed, and then it's looked at as cute. They're like, oh, look at Uncle Paul is over there. He's passed out. He's sleeping, you know, that kind of thing. And it's like, nah, man, we can. So that's why for me, I got to a point where I just automatically fast. On them days, I fast on Thanksgiving, Christmas. Like I'm not eating anything because if anything else, I know I'm reversing my own physiological karma because there was a time when I did used to stuff myself silly on those days, and so I'm like, all right, I'm gonna pay reparations, and then I do the famous Thanksgiving Day address on that day because I also want to create a space for people that do feel alone, that are still compelled to go, and they go out to the family get together and that kind of stuff, and I'm like kind of there just letting you know that you're not crazy.
Right.
You know, you're not the crazy one. There
Right.
was a video years ago of somebody, it was like a politician that was giving an interview, and they were at a turkey slaughter facility, and right behind her there was somebody was stuffing a turkey into the thing where it like cuts its head off and stuff, and it's on camera on the news,
Jesus.
and even the dude that was doing it was kind of looking over his shoulder at the camera like, are you sure you want to film this? And but that's what I'm saying. That's the kind of ethos, that's the kind of sickness that comes out of that. So I encourage people to to really analyze human behavior
Yeah.
and analyze it from the perspective of pus and mucus eating.
Mm-hmm.
If you take pus and mucus eating out of the equation, how does one's behavior change? From our experience and what we've seen, it drastically changes. So you start looking at the diet of like, what were these guys eating? What the guy that just did that in New Orleans, that took his vehicle and just ran over however many 25 people or whatever that was. What was he eating? The people that go into a mall or a school with a gun and shoot everybody, what were they eating? The psychopathic killers and the serial killers and the rapists, like what are their diets like? Have they been eating fruits and green leafy vegetables for many, many years? Or have they been eating pus and mucus forming foods? And in every case, they've been eating pus and mucus forming foods.
Wow.
So the pushback is somebody's, well, my grandma, she ate pus and mucus forming foods, and they wouldn't say it like that, but because they don't like to admit that. But it's like, well, my grandma, she ate like that, and but she was a saint. She was so nice to everybody. And I was like, well, there's a few reasons for that, but the one thing is, if you take alcohol, people that get drunk, not everybody operates the same way on every drug. So some people drink alcohol, get drunk, and they get more social. They want to go talk to people. Some people drink alcohol, they get angry and mean and nasty. Other people do some alcohol and they just want to go take a nap. But then some people do some alcohol and they end up murdering somebody. And so that the trigger is different. So some people going to eat a steak and they'll go take a nap. Somebody else going to eat a steak and they'll be like, okay, hand me that gun and go do a drive-by shooting. And so yes, but that's something that has to really be understood and some deep analysis. But when you start, but just from a thought experiment level, you start thinking about it and you observe just of your own experience. Because I know in myself, one of the things that practicing the diet helped me do was it forced me to deal with what maybe would have been hatred towards certain people. When I started looking into history and I'm studying the history of slavery and the Ku Klux Klan and the lynching of black people and this kind of stuff, and having had some of my own experience back in the 90s in Tennessee where my life was threatened. I was 15 years old on a Boy Scout trip, and I had all these 6 big old white dudes came out like, hey, N-word, what are you doing? We gonna kill you, N-word. Come here, And so I know some people, not everybody's had that experience, so I still got a chance to, I might not have experienced the 60s and the 70s, but still in the 90s.
How did you get out of that situation?
So what I did, I was with another Boy Scout was with me who was white, but I actually stood my ground, like, because at the moment in my head, because at that time I was like studying military tactics and all this. As a Boy Scout, so I was into all this kind of stuff. But I had a butterfly knife in my pocket, and my thing was like, I'm not gonna do nothing stupid, but I'm not just gonna turn and run. So I literally faced them because we had just pus and mucus. I was at a Hardee's, and it just ate. In the front of Hardee's they have this like picnic table area. So I had just got done eating, and it just stood up and literally was just about to walk back to our hotel as we were on our way to Knoxville for a Boy Scout trip. And this was like late night, so it was just me and this other guy. We just went like, yeah, we'd get some food. And so when I left, it was like these guys that were inside the Hardee's looked and they saw me, and they and I didn't think nothing of it when I saw them. They kind of gave me this look and then started walking toward the door, and I was just like, and I just didn't think anything of it because I was blissfully naive and ignorant up to this point. And so we're starting to walk away like we're going back to our hotel, and they come up to the door, open the door of the restaurant, and that's when they start yelling like, "Hey, you N-word, what you doing here? What just like, come here, And so I turn, and I'm just kind of giving him this face like, what the hell's your problem? And then he's like, come here, we gonna kill you. How dare you be here? And so instead of like just running away or whatever, or saying nothing, I put my hand in my pocket. That's where my butterfly knife was. And in my mind at that moment, what actually flashed through my mind was, y'all might kill me, but I'm taking one of you with me. That was all I had in my head.
Wow.
So I took a step in their direction. I'm 15 years old, but I took a step in there. Like, it was what the weirdest thing, because this shows you the cowardice of old school racism. But I took a step in their direction, and it's like these are 6 grown ass men, and they are like backed up. Then if I took a step back, like I'm trying to I'm like, okay, I'm about to leave, they would kind of take a step forward toward me. So it was super weird. And so, but I just kind of stared them down, and then at a certain point, I just kind of kept eye contact, and I backed up until I was a safe enough distance away, and then I just turned around, and then me and the dude just walked. We just kind of walk straight back to the hotel. But yeah, that was
wow, brother.
Yeah, that was because even in the 90s, people thought that, oh, well, it's, that kind of racism is over now. But some people thought that. A lot of people still, there was a lot of police that were shooting and killing unarmed black teenagers and children. I mean, that was happening quite a bit back then. But yeah, the racism was happening. It was happening back then, and so with that, there was times where I've really delved into the history of, even from a young age, when I talk about the study of human suffering, I was really young studying the Holocaust and just major atrocities of history. The slave got real deep into studying, slavery, post-slavery, the sharecropper era. People think slavery was over. It's like, no, it wasn't. Like sometimes the sharecropper era was even worse. The Jim Crow laws and Jim Crow South, at a certain point, I wouldn't even have been able to walk. That's almost what they reminded me of, like a time when it was illegal for you as a black person to walk on the same sidewalk as a white person. If you were on a sidewalk and you saw a white person up front of you, you had to step off the sidewalk and avert your eyes. You had to look at the ground. It was illegal to look a white person in the eye. That wasn't that long ago. We're not, people are like, oh, we're post-racial. This is a post-racial era. It's like, man, this wasn't that long ago when you could be killed for looking a white person in the eye in this country, in this so-called United States. I'm not sure where you're at, but so that's something that I get passionate about, and I wrote a whole. So I got a video that I made where I actually talk about this in depth. I don't think I had to take it off of YouTube. It was one of those like too hot for YouTube videos. But I basically go through this, and I show how by practicing the mucusless diet, it forced me to literally to not suppress, because what some people do is they'll take some hatred, or they'll take those feelings and suppress it. But what it forced me to do was actually go right into the middle of it, process it, understand it, deal with it, and let it go, to the point, because I know that holding on to hatred, holding on to any kind of fear, it doesn't hurt them, it hurts me. Exactly. And so that was wisdom that I had to that I learned through practicing the mucusless diet healing system.
Man, thank you for this. Thank you. Thank you just for giving us all of that, just for also taking us down to that memory. I'm glad you're still here. I'm glad that the situation didn't escalate even further. I'm glad that they backed up. They must have felt your energy when you came with that intention. You were like, one of you is coming with me. You know, somebody is coming with me. I'm not going down without a fight. They must have felt that wave of energy and stepped back, because I'm glad you know, you didn't just become like, we hear so many stories about like the Emmett Tills and just
Right.
the so many people throughout history that all it took was a look, you know, all it took was a word, all it took was a slip of just anything, you know, all it took was just, you know, something that was just misconstrued or you know, and then twisted in a way that would seem like, oh, you know, and just these things, they happen so much that you just think about. But also, the last thing I wanted to ask you, brother, and this was the last thing, because you mentioned the animals, and we understand the atrocities. You read about the Holocaust, and you know about the atrocities that human beings have done to other human beings. But I never even heard or never even knew about what they call speciesism, you know, with us just having dominance or thinking that we have dominance automatically over another species and ruling another species just beneath us by default. And when you
Right.
talk about people going against natural laws or going against these universal laws and having to pay reparations for that lower vibration, and just the subjugation of a species, you know, when it wasn't until I watched Earthlings that I even knew about this, and that it was like a whole world was open to me, and I was able to peek beyond the veil and see this is what's been going on, you
Mm-hmm.
know, like this
Right.
whole time I was unknowingly like contributing to what was going on. And you hear these things and you wonder, like, wow, is it really like that? You know, even one of my uncles who, you know, he's in his 90s now. He'll never stop, you know, eating animal flesh.
Right.
But even he had to admit, he said, we grow more food to feed the animals that we eat than we even grow to feed ourselves. And there was something that said, if human beings were slaughtered at the rate that we slaughter animals, like that animals are systematic, like if we
Yeah.
were like at that rate, they said the whole human population, billions of people, we'd be gone in about 47 days.
Yeah.
They said
Yeah. Yeah.
47 days at the rate that we're killing these animals,
Right.
we'd be gone within you know, a couple of months, we'd be gone,
Right.
you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's just they're breeding and killing. So when you're holding that kitty, I saw the picture of you holding the cat in your hand, and you were like, you know, name this cat after your last meal or something, you know. And you have a picture of, you know, we're condemning people who leave the dog in the car on the hot day, but then we're not condemning the slaughtering of animals that go on every day, you
Right.
know.
Right.
So can you talk about, just lastly, can you talk
Mm-hmm.
about these two dynamics where we're able to pet, you know, a cat? My cat is over here right now. He's just
Chilling.
he's just so down.
Yeah.
His name is Neo, by the way. That's Neo. Can you talk about how we're able to pet a cat or walk our dog, but eat a pig or eat a cow or slaughter a chicken? You know, how do these
Hmm.
compute when it comes to you?
Yeah. So what what's interesting about that is one thing that I point out, practice it for me, practicing the mucusless diet is what really brought me out of like a psychopathic kind of haze. Because everybody that's on this planet, all humans, this is my little theory where we talk about people being on some type of spectrum, where everybody is on the psychopath spectrum somewhere. There, you know, because just to exist in our current situation, you can't be 100% empathetic to everything at all times. You wouldn't be able to even think properly or just operate.
Mm.
And I know a few people that would be close to that, and they're not very happy because they don't know how to even shut out all of the vibrations or process it and that kind of stuff. But what I realized was when before when you know, I'd been exposed to some of the animal slaughter stuff and the, you know, vegan for the animals kind of concepts before practicing the diet. Wasn't popular yet, but I had been exposed to that. But before practicing the diet, I had a very psychopathic type of mentality about the killing of animals, where I was definitely a speciesist from the standpoint, and I was the type of person that not only am I going to eat this, if I had to kill it myself, I would. Like, that was my attitude, because there's a lot of people that if they had to kill the animal themselves, they wouldn't eat it. But I just had thought through it, like, no, because I did, and this is why I try to, sometimes I get pushback from some of the vegan folks for this, is I'm saying you're not going to be able to touch everybody through logic and empathy, because you're dealing with psychopaths. So you have to study psychopathism. Like, you actually have to, like, you can go study psychopaths, sociopaths, like that whole. Because
can you say that one more time? One more time.
Which part?
That last part that you said, you're not going to reach everyone with logic and empathy.
Yeah.
You're dealing with psychopathy. Can you?
Yeah, dealing with psychopaths.
Okay.
Yeah. So, or humans in a psychopathic condition. So I'm not saying like clinical. I know there's a clinical definition of psychopath where they have a certain kind of brain chemistry, but I'm talking about in general as a species. Right. The species is in a pus and mucus induced state is highly psychopathic.
Wow.
So again, when you study how you deal with psychopaths, how do you work with them, there's methodologies that work and there's things that don't work. There's a percentage of people that you'll be able to use empathy or use logic to help them in this direction, to help them wake up. But with a psychopath, it's going to have to be based on helping themselves. Like something, if they're in danger or something, they will do a logical action only if it's going to help themselves. Right. If it means saving their life, they will maybe do it.
Right.
And so for me, it took practicing the Mucusless Diet, and about 6 months in to practicing the diet, I was like losing this weight. I'd been doing some fasting. I was just going through this whole cleansing process. But I had still, every once in a while, I would have a little bit of meat. Like, I'd have a craving and go have some. But at this one point, I was fasting for several days. And in my mind, I'm like, man, why am I still craving meat sometimes? And I decided to watch a slaughterhouse video. And back then, like, you had to download that stuff from a BitTorrent and stuff. They weren't all over the place back then. It was hard to find. This is like 2003 or 2002. And so wow,
that's even before YouTube. That's before.
Oh
YouTube.
Yeah, wow. Exactly. And so I found which you can still probably look it up, called Meet Your Meat, which was, I think, produced by PETA like in the 90s or something. So I had downloaded that, and I remember just watching it, and it was like something clicked inside of me, and all the years of this lack of empathy, all of that, it was like something warmed up. And it was just, I mean, it was literally like the Grinch in the Grinch Stole Christmas cartoon, where all of his heart grows, and he's like, but because I literally, like, I cried for like an hour, because the realization, it all started to come forth. And so that's where the realization actually came, the empathy. It didn't come from somebody preaching to me about it or some kind of lecture on, well, this is the animals. It was like, it literally took me cleaning my colon out. I'd been doing lemon juice and distilled water enemas for a period. I'd been fasting for a period of time. I've been eating mucus free for a period of time. It took that to get me to a point where I could have that realization, where enough of the obstruction had been removed to where I could actually feel the empathy. I could, at that point, I could started to feel things, because I had even there was a point in my life where I think I consciously had suppressed being able to feel like that, being able to empathize and feel people. Part of that, like when my grandma and my mom died, And so all of a sudden that was released, and it was just like the flood of emotions, the flood of just in a moment, just I could feel all of the pain and torment of the tortured animals that I had eaten. And that's part of the realization I made when I talk about physiological karma. I came to the realization that I have to pay penance for every animal that I ate that was in fear, that had those fear hormones as they were being slaughtered. I would need to go through the appropriate eliminations with body, mind, and spirit to pay recompense for the ill that I had done. Even I didn't know that I was doing ill. It doesn't matter. I still have to pay those reparations. Wow. So with that realization, when I went through periods where I'd be going through, we always call it elimination. We don't call it being sick. When I was going through something, whether it was having a fever, just having, some backaches, or just things that happen when you're going through this cleansing process, healing crisis symptoms, or whatever terminology you want to use. Some people go through those things and they'll be like, oh, this diet isn't working. I feel horrible. Or they'll be like, oh, I don't, what should I eat something and break? I feel so bad. And it's like, that's where understanding what I just said can really serve you, because you start to realize it's like, okay, this is temporary. This is a temporary sentence for the laws that I've broken. Let me pay penance as best as I can. Let the time serve me instead of serving the time. And so that helped me just be at peace with going through elimination, where I'm not scared of it. I'm not running from it. It doesn't happen anymore. It's very rarely do I have the opportunity. I mean, I got to a point where I was looking forward to elimination, where I'm like, let's go. If my body's going to give me a fever so I can dump pounds and pounds of slime out of my body because it warms everything up so I can eject this stuff, beautiful. But it's not there to be ejected, so the body's not going to go into a fever state. And of course, like the past years, I was it seemed like everybody around me was getting sick from whatever they called the sickness, but they were all the ones that were getting the shot. I didn't get, and they're like, a couple of them were like, "You didn't get sick at all, did you?" It was like, man, I ain't been sick in years. I'm the only one that didn't get sick because I just don't even deal with that whole wavelength of that whole vibration. Right. But that's a big lesson to understand, that helps you not feel sorry for yourself. It helps you to accept. It's like acceptance. Accept the elimination that you have to go through. It's going to be different for everybody. Some people might have to rebuild their endocrine system. That's not easy. That takes time. But understand that the reason that you have to do that is because you did break all of these rules. So don't blame eating the fruit. And don't blame, oh, it's all this fructose and the sugar, and I'm fatigued and I got brain fog. And I was like, don't blame the fruit. Don't blame the diet. We have to look at this holistically, understand, again, the legacy of the physiological karma. And that's why I say we're pursuing physiological liberation. Yes. We're working to get free. Yes. And that's what the freedom looks like, is being free of the karma, being free of all of that, the dead animal karma, the karma, that any hatreds, again, and whatever. That's what I love about the Mucusless Diet. Whatever obstruction you have, whether it's in your body, if it's in your mind, if it's in your spirit, that will be forced to the surface to be eliminated. And sometimes when things are eliminating, it's uncomfortable. They say sometimes I had to eliminate a lot of those pharmaceutical drugs out of my system. Definitely. For people that enjoyed the cannabis lifestyle, you're going to have some neurotoxic eliminations that you're going to have to deal with. Unfortunately, if you did the smoke part of it, the people that did psychiatric medications, all that stuff is horrible.
I was on a lot of it. Yeah. For sure. The Adderall, the Strattera,
Mm.
the Ritalin, yeah, all of that throughout my childhood for sure. Yeah,
Yeah. Have you kind of noticed that you've gone through eliminations that where you could pinpoint like, oh, this is leaving my body.
absolutely.
This is leaving my bloodstream. Yeah.
Absolutely. And thank you so much just for these testimonies, just for even as well, like just your vulnerability, like just letting us into your world, into your psyche, into your mind space, and into your heart, like letting us into what you witnessed. And this was before it's widespread now. I mean, now we're able to easily access a lot of the information that back then you didn't have the access, as much as we do today. You had to really go seek out and find it. Now
Right.
it's like there's not much of an excuse if you haven't seen it. It's like you can just turn on YouTube and it'll show you it's right there.
Right.
But my goodness, you sought out the information, and what an effect it had on you for you to realize, oh wow, what have I done? But it's not like, woe is me. It's not like a pity party or shaming yourself or blaming yourself. Is understanding, you know what? Let's reclaim this. Like let's retrain this, reframe this, and then gain this. Let's not put myself down. Let's use this to turn things around. Now I
Right.
have the power. If I had the power to do that, I have the power to change it. I have the power to become something more, something different. And thank you for letting other people know that they also do have the power wherever they are, that even if it feels like a credit card that they've just been swiping and swiping over and over, accruing the debt, the balance has been amounting and amounting, that we can still, get that down. And we do have to pay that back,
Right.
but it's
Yep.
okay. It's a process. It's a procedure. It's a journey. It's a learning, it's a learning. So, brother, Professor, thank you for just coming on. Thank you for all of this. You gave us a whole wealth of information and knowledge and just gems. People were really just asking, like, and saying so much of, so many hearts were going up, so many people were resonating and just reverberating with your testimony. And it's been touching, to hear. And this is what the world needs. This is the perspective for the collective. So if this is somebody's first time seeing you and they really want to get in touch or in tune with your offerings, your
Mm.
services, what's the best website? What's the best place? Where should they go to receive that?
So if you're here on Instagram, go ahead and follow me. Click the link in my bio, and my link tree is there. Then there's links to my website, mucusfreelife.com, links to our membership information if you want to work with us and get more information about that. We got a couple courses on there, books, all that good stuff. So you could hit the link tree or go to mucusfreelife.com and get access to a lot of those things. But yeah, that's definitely come check us out.
Beautiful. Beautiful. All right. All right. So y'all definitely follow Professor Spira. Follow this man. He is helping the whole next generation, for the reclamation of our vibration and just the body itself. So blessings, brother. Enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy.
I will. Thank you so much for having me, man. It's been a great interview.
Take care. Take
All
care.
right, take care. All right, peace.